And number two, the intent of the operation was also to try to prevent some violent crime. So we can say during the operation there was no violent crime that occurred. In trying to looking at when this operation needed to take place, we looked at data. And that was one of the reasons why those days and those times were chosen to put these additional resources out on the street. I also need to point out that this wasn't just Violent Crimes Task Force. There were other agency resources. It was the traffic unit, there was the K-9 unit, and even patrol provided staffing for the operation as well.
Gotcha. What are some of the hotspots that you guys mentioned in that?
Well, hotspots, so let me talk a little bit about what hotspot policing is that historically there's usually certain areas of cities that will have an increase in crime depending on the kind of crime you're targeting. So hotspot basically looks at that. So it'll look at a wide range of crime. It can just simply be property crime, it might be violent crime, over a period of time. And so depending on the problem we're trying to attack, the precinct commanders and other, when we're doing operations, we'll look at various hotspots. And those hotspots, again, are based upon historical crime data over a period of time.
Right, and where are those here?
Well, it depends on what kind of crime you're talking about. For example, if you go to our website, there's a link to accurate crime analysis, and you can see, what hotspot mapping basically uses a mathematical algorithm to give you a graphical or visual representation. So while that on our website, you'll see a dot, what it'll do is, and I'm not trying to avoid answering the question, it depends upon the crime that you're looking at.
What I'm asking is where were the hotspots on the 19th and the 20th?
Oh, I'd have to go back and look and see what they were looking at.
Oh,
I don't have that information.
Sorry.
This was a collective effort involving multiple divisions within the department, even outside agencies. What really prompted you to bring other resources in for this two-day event?
But when you start talking about I guess you start with the end in mind. So we kind of had a general sense in terms of what we wanted to accomplish. From there, you go backwards and you identify what resources you might need to accomplish your goal and what resources are available. And then you work backwards from that to identify staffing and resources.
You mentioned also data. That was this investigation was data driven. Can you expound on that without compromising anything, but what really data are we talking about?
So when we start looking at these types of operations, it's difficult, it's a challenge sometimes to predict where crime might occur, right? So we use historical data, and we'll say, so during this time frame, whether it be a 2-week or a 1 month, or we can go back farther, depending, if we're wanting to target a specific crime type, whether it be violent crime or property crime, or other types of crime, we can say, okay, let's look at this data. What are the days of the week and the hours that we need to focus on? Does it make sense?
Yes, thank you. How much community involvement took place in this investigation?
I think that it varies from instance to instance. A lot of some of the, let me back up. Community involvement is huge in the sense that the community knows the hotspots also. It's not uncommon that we'll go out and as they're executing a search warrant and they'll start mingling with members of the neighborhood, and the neighborhood will say, oh, thank you, we've known this is a problem, or they might have even approached us and asked that we take a look at a house or a certain part of the neighborhood. So in that regard, it's huge, because a lot of the time, a lot of our complaints are driven from information, and it just reaffirms the principle that in a democracy, we need that citizen input. It's hard for us to do our job without information coming in from the public, helping us focus our efforts.
When people are going to see this tonight, and they're going to see 22 arrests and multiple divisions within the department taking part of this, what message do you think that sends to the community?
I think it goes back to what I mentioned when I opened up, when we first started talking, is that reaffirms the chief and the police department's commitment to go after guns, gangs, and drugs. This is a response to the recent incidents that we've had. And again, we frequently lean upon our partnerships, which is a huge part. It helps us get our job done.
To that point though, I think to see 22 arrests, people might think our community's unsafe. Is that an accurate picture, to feel like, wow, a big, huge roundup of all these people with large warrants out for them, etc., lots of drugs on the street, etc.?
I mean, ultimately it's going to be the individual's perception, right, on whether or not they feel that they're safe. We would hope that everybody feels safe. The reality is Unfortunately, and not just in Savannah, but all across this country, crime can raise its ugly head.
So it's a nice message, you know, Chief is committed to going after guns and drugs and violent offenders, but there were like 2-3 violent offender arrests, one gun, which was a revolver, which it was confiscated, and all of the most of the drugs were just marijuana, which there's an ordinance for, and even if you confiscated all of the marijuana from one car, that would still apply to the city's marijuana ordinance.
So it has to be a misdemeanor possession. You have to know, there's a couple other variables that
Right.
impact that, and we are leveraging that ordinance.
One of them being officer discretion, they have the discretion
Right.
to give it or not, but what I'm asking is like, is like, what is, you know, the thing that stood out to me the most was that there were 400 traffic citations. Like, how many of these drug seizures came from something other than a traffic stop?
I don't have the data broken down. I know that one of the reasons why you saw so many traffic citations, because the traffic unit was involved. They were part of it. And so when they were orchestrating the plan, trying to figure where they're at, understand also that some of the community input we get are complaints about traffic, right? People driving, speeding through neighborhoods, things along those lines, and of course DUIs as well. I don't know how, and before you ask me, I don't know how many DUIs were made during the operation. So that's just part of the operation. We also know that from a historical perspective, traffic stops can lead to other things. Traffic stops sometimes can lead to drug arrests, they can lead to gun arrests. And while we were focusing on this operation, that it was an effort again to be kind of proactive. Do we always like to see a little bit more? Absolutely, but I guess based upon the information that we have was the operation that was put together, these were the results.
So do you have any idea how many people were pulled over?
I don't have, because I mean, while it was 400 citations, some of those might be one person receiving multiple citations, and that probably does not include, I don't know if there were any warnings written either.
You know, looking at a broader picture of things, you know, the governor's been pretty active as far as tackling gang violence. Representative Carl Gilliard also is spearheading that effort. How important is what they're doing and what you're doing, and how does that trickle down from Atlanta to here?
So I think a couple of things you have to remember. Over the last year, working with the DA's office, we had a multi-count, I believe it was over 100 count indictment involving multiple murders. That happened last year, and then also in the fall, there was a separate indictment involving gang members of I believe it was 7 or 9 shootings. So it's something, I think, again, first and foremost, we've got an awesome working relationship with the DA's office, because a lot of those cases we start out working and then working with the DA's office, and they start piecing some of these complex investigations together. And what's really complicated in gang investigations are these are individuals that don't want to talk to us to begin with. It's not a traditional crime. We clearly have a victim and you have a suspect, and it's easy to understand exactly what's going on. So we're having to use some non-traditional and some technology to try to link those together. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's part of the whole process of the system to go after these gangs. You know, even to the extent that we also have a close working relationship with the local U.S. Attorney's Office, with the Safe Neighborhoods Initiative, in terms of they present cases on a monthly basis to the U.S. Attorney's Office on guns that are recovered in an effort to try to, because through the federal system they're going to get enhanced sentencing. They're going to get a much heavier sentence than they are through the state system.
Is this a new way to police? Is this something that we could see more often, these, 2-day specific stings, kind of?
I think that it's something that we've talked about internally. Probably we'll start seeing them on somewhat regular basis, and it's stuff that we've done in the past.
For you guys, the advantage of being able to do this, use those multiple partners, and focus in on really two hard enforcement days.
Right. Again, it's going to depend upon a number of factors. Again, what does the data show, and/or support, what resources are available, and what do we think we should. At the end of the day, if we put an operation together, we want it to be successful, right? We want to get something for our efforts.
Do you feel like this one was successful when you look at?
I think overall we're pretty satisfied with the results.
Knowing the chief's focus in tackling, like you mentioned before, these guns and gangs, what are his thoughts when he sees these numbers when you bring this report to him?
I think he appeared satisfied also, and pleased with the outcome.
Sorry, just for clarification, the Richmond Hill stuff, that was just a person that you've noticed the tags and Savannah police pulled them over?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, was the information we received from Richmond Hill, right?
Correct. Richmond Hill had notified our detectives that they were looking for them. We have a joint intelligence section that we work with other agencies. That information was passed to us. We kept an eye out for the car when we located it. They also observed him commit a traffic violation. He was stopped as a result, turned over to Richmond Hill, and they'll take it from there. We had charges on him locally for things that were in the car, and then they will go from there.
So I guess like what I'm trying to get at here is like, the gang unit was out, did you make any gang arrests?
I don't believe they were any gang arrests. Most of the gang arrests that we make usually come through a long investigation involving the DA's office.
The violent crimes unit was out, and did you make any arrests in recent violent crime over the 2 days?
Well, those arrest warrants were, I don't know when the arrest warrants were taken out, but those arrest warrants were recent violent crime.
But not like the shootings, the Carrie Hill, well, the Carrie Hill shooter's taken care of, but like the other shootings that have been.
I believe we
pretty
also,
recently.
well, I believe we have one incident has been publicized. We have an outstanding arrest warrant in one of the cases also. If we knew where he was, he would already be in jail.
And did that result from the?
No, that we already had an
No.
arrest warrant out
Okay.
prior to that.
So it seems like you guys just gave a whole bunch of parking citations. Like, how different is this operation these 2 days from a regular 2 days of policing?
So again, we have to remember,
You want to touch it?
sure.
One of the things that might be a little more clarification on the traffic citations. When we go into a neighborhood and we write a ton of traffic citations, if that is a hotspot neighborhood where there is a bunch of crime taking place, that automatically calms down that neighborhood. So while yes, we wrote a lot of traffic citations, we also were in neighborhoods where we've had recent shootings, where we've had gang violence, where we've had some of the issues that we're targeting. If we can't get the people that are actually doing it, if they're afraid to move around that neighborhood because we're out making traffic stops, we've solved part of the problem. So to say that just because we made traffic stops, we didn't do anything for violent crime, we actually did. There was not a shooting took place in any of our hotspot neighborhoods those days, and there wasn't one the next day or the next day after that, because there was an increased officer presence in that area, and that does affect our violent crime.
So it's more of a presence thing.
Well, it's a presence
I
thing,
think that's
it's a
part of it,
deterrent
yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
You're deterring crime. If they see a ton of officers in the area, if they hear a helicopter flying overhead, if they see dogs out on traffic stops and people looking for guns in cars and those kinds of things, they're less apt to do those kinds of things in that neighborhood. So it all kind of works together, and not all of it results in arrest. Unfortunately, we may stop 50 cars in a neighborhood, and it may be car number 51 that has 5 stolen guns and 2 kilos of cocaine in it. It's luck of the draw. Sometimes it's just what you catch. That's
Sergeant, I think it begs the question that what you said is
Sorry.
patrolling those hotspot areas, having a presence there may be a preventative measure, even though it may not have netted what the intent was. Is that correct?
And some, there are unintended consequences of these kinds of operations. While we would love to see numbers, we would love to see bad guys in jail, we would also love to see nobody get shot that weekend. That's more important than did we make an arrest. Nobody else got hurt. Nobody's mother is not coming home. Nobody's child is not coming home that night. That is far more important to us than did we get another gun, did we get another arrest. So it's kind of you're gonna get some give and take, and this weekend we may not have gotten perfect numbers, but we certainly did deter some crime in a lot of areas that we've had some issues in. So,
Thank you.
anything else? All right, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.